Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Songs of Our Lives. I'm Brad Rose. I'm an artist, a composer, a writer, the founder of Foxy Digitalis, someone who thinks about music and sound far more than is healthy. Each week, I invite on a guest to talk about the songs and the music that has meant a lot to them and left its mark. Previous guests include Amelia Courthouse, Ava Mendoza, Alan Licht, Six Organs of Admittance, Rosalie, and so many more. But this week, fellow lifer is here with me, somebody who I wanted to have on the show since its inception. Took a while. Made it. It's worth it. It's James Toth. And one half of the first husband-wife duo to be on the show. He is, of course, married to the great Leah Toth, a.k.a. Amelia Courthouse. You should go listen to that episode if you haven't heard it. Anyway, James is awesome. We've known each other for a long, long time. I've loved so much of his music, his writing, everything. I don't know. James is a real one. And I knew this was going to be a good episode. Like, I've always just felt like a real kinship to the way James thinks about music and talks about music. And yeah, I think we're close to the same age. I don't know exactly, but so I think we have some similar-ish experiences. And yeah, it was a good time. It's one of those conversations. It's like, man, wish I could have conversations like this every week with people. I mean, I kind of do in its own way, but like, yeah, it just felt like hanging out with an old friend, you know? And that's the best. That's the best. We did talk a little bit about his Dunza project, which is awesome. If you haven't heard it, there's a link in the show notes. I can't recommend it enough. And we didn't talk about the James and the Giants album on Kill Rock Stars that came out about a year and a half ago. I love that record. Should have said something about it, but hey, also link to that. Check that out. Before we get into it, as always, if you enjoy the show, appreciate the show, please leave a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts, because that helps get it in front of other people. And if you really want to support the cause, patreon.com/Foxy Digitalis for as little as $3 a month. You get extended versions of this. There's other stuff, and the ongoing support really helps keep Foxy Digitalis and the show and all the things swirling around it going. And everyone who's signed up, I appreciate you dearly. But now with that, let's see what James and I talk about. My guest today is a musician, a songwriter, a podcaster, former podcaster. Do you still do your podcast?
No? On hiatus.
Yes. I don't know. Sometimes. Husband to a previous guest. First time of that. It's James Toth. Woo!
Woo! Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think we're getting a little glitchy.
Uh-oh. Okay. Let me turn off the camera.
Let's go video off.
Sorry, man.
No, all good.
Okay, cool.
Okay, let's see if that's better.
Yeah, are we in real time too? It felt like there was a lag for a second.
Yeah, it felt like there was a lag, and I think we're better now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's pick up with how's it going?
It's going all right. You know, it's early in the year. I'm kind of superstitious about the new year. I like it's probably the only holiday I really like. Because I'm old fashioned about things like resolutions and new broom sweeps clean and all that. So feeling pretty good, feeling pretty refreshed.
Does that mean you've got some resolutions? Any that you'd care to share?
I mean, there are always like small ones and then there's big ones. Like the small ones this year is I want to solve a Rubik's Cube because I've never done that. And I want to learn some yo-yo tricks. Those are the smaller, more mundane resolutions, and then the bigger ones are more just kind of the same as always, like less stockpiling and more listening. Because I have, like you, I'm sure, have so many unopened parcels of records and mail coming in and friends sending stuff all the time, and I'm inundated, and I want to get back to the place where I can interface with music the way I did when I was a kid. You know,
man. That really hits home. Yeah. If you figure out a way, please share, because I feel like I've been trying to do that like the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem for people in our cohort,
Yeah. Yeah, hoarders. Um, I will mention, so yes, we were talking before this, like you released a couple months ago the Dunza Live to Tell.
Right.
Is it Live to Tell or Live to Tell? It's got to be Live to Tell, right?
It's Live to Tell, and it is inspired by the Madonna song, which I think we'll probably talk about on this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yes. So we won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but I am curious, like, what sort of prompted starting Dunza?
Well, I mean, I guess like a lot of people, I was kind of going crazy during the pandemic. And I had a tour canceled with 111 Heavy, and we had a recording session planned, and all these things. It's pretty typical. I'm sure you've heard this story 1,000 times now, but from other people. But I just kind of wanted to continue to work on things and make things. And Dunza was sort of my platonic ideal of music in a lot of, or at least that was the goal, because it encompasses everything about music that I've loved since I was a kid, except for like prog and death metal and free jazz or whatever, because I can't do those things, right? Like I can't even approximate sounding like, Carcass or whatever, or, Fred Anderson. Right. So like all the things I love, like, doom metal and dub and like weird psych folk and techno and house and all these things that I really love and listen to a lot. I just wanted to kind of bring them all together, and the evil of metal too, like the sort of darkness of metal, if not the sonic qualities. So Dunza was just my like, I mean, it always sounds like hubris when people are like, there's no genre for my music. Like, but I really don't know what it is exactly. I just know I have a ton of fun making it, and I really love working on Dunza stuff. It's kind of my favorite thing to do.
That's the best feeling though. Yeah. Like I've been feeling that way with some of my stuff where it's just, I mean, and if you don't love doing it, God, it's like, why, especially like at the scale, I don't know, like why the hell am I doing it? But,
yeah, I played 2 shows last year, and it was the first 2 solo shows I played in 7 years. And, I hated every minute of it. I mean, like I had a good time because my friends were there and, and all that stuff. But, I met nice people and all that stuff is still cool, but I probably will never do that again. So I get it,
Yeah, I was having this conversation yesterday about, cause I don't know, I can't remember the last solo show I played. Like I've played in some like duos and trios and stuff. And that's always a blast. But
yeah,
the thought of playing solo stresses me out.
Yeah, I love collaborating. Like I'm in the middle of like 5 different ones right now, collaborations, and always up for that. But just dude on a stool with a guitar, I just don't want to be that. And I just it's palpable, and I feel like the audience feels it too, that I'm not having a good time. So I'm just not going to do it, at least not for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and who knows? Yeah, I mean, it's always, I'm like, I'll never say never, because I may get hit by lightning and want to do something totally different. But
sure.
Speaking of solo with a guitar, I was going to say, since this is a podcast about songs, a song that you wrote probably gets stuck in my head at least like once a month, and has for it's got to be going on 20 years now, which is Sundrum, ladies.
Oh, cool! Thanks, man.
The most random times I'll just be sitting there, and all of a sudden I'll just be like,
Thanks, dude.
I love that song, and I still love that album. And I remember when it first came out, and I think you probably sent me like a promo of it or something. Yeah. And at that point, I'd never heard you do anything like that, and it blew my mind in the best way. And I still fucking love that record.
Thanks, man. And Woods do a really good cover of that too, if you haven't heard it. There's a good. Woods
I had no idea.
Yeah, I'll send it to you when we're done here. But by the way, I just want to mention though that since you brought it up, you are officially the very first person to ever interview Wooden Wand. I want to get that on record. The Foxy,
really?
Yeah, that was the very first Wooden Wand as Wooden Wand. I mean, I'd done interviews with previous bands, but that was the very first one. So I always appreciated that, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, that rules, man. That's like, it's hard to believe that was probably close to 20 years ago.
Oh God, yeah. That's scary.
God, we're fucking old, dude. Wait, here we go. Speaking of being old, let's like go back to when we're going to get into this and go back to when you were super young.
Right.
And I think we're pretty close in age. So like, cause a lot of, yeah. So, what's the first song you remember, James?
Well, I didn't want to cheat and talk about like TV themes, because the first songs I really remember are like, the themes to like MASH and Taxi and Cheers. And my mom would always watch Dallas and Falcon Crest and Dynasty. And then like things like Grease. Like, of course, my sisters and I always watched Grease growing up. But as far as like songs that were on the radio or like popular songs, Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue by Crystal Gale is the first song I remember. My grandmother had a player piano, which was a source of endless amusement when I was growing up. And she had all these piano rolls. There were a lot of contemporaries, like she had like Beatles songs and stuff. And this was one of them. And I just loved this song, that little piano roll, that little refrain in the chorus. I still deeply love that song too. And so when I heard the Crystal Gale version, I don't know. It moved me. It moved me. It was probably the first piece of, like I said, I mean, like the Grease Lightning didn't move me, but I feel like Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, like I felt moved by music. It was a really powerful feeling. So that song is always have a big soft spot for that tune.
That is like my note here this is one of my favorite songs as a kid. And my mom loves to tell the story about anytime like they had music on in the house, and if like this came on the radio, no matter where I was in the house, I would come running and just listen to it and just belt it out. And
that's so cool.
It is, this song is like a masterpiece. It's so good.
Absolutely a masterpiece.
And her voice is so. When I was listening to it again, the other day, getting ready for this, I can't remember the last time I heard it, and I was kind of taken aback, but I forgot how great her voice is.
I think that's half of it. I mean, it's a very well written song, and it's really indelible and stuff. But Crystal Gale, like for me, like, and I think this is probably a theme we'll come back to throughout this interview. But like the delivery of the lyrics in that song is so the "Honey Now I Do" part. There are certain singers like I think Daryl Hall and Bonnie Raitt is definitely one of these people, like latter day Bonnie Raitt. Like they just sing, they're just effortless, just grace. And there's no pretense. There's perfect singing voices, and I feel like Crystal Gale on that song really captures what I love about that.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're off to a good start. So, what is a song? Well, first, are you a crier? Are you a big crier?
I'm not like a bury my head in my hands and weep kind of guy, but music definitely makes me feel very emotional. I'm actually very sentimental. Again, this is another theme that will probably come up, but throughout. But a lot of songs make me cry, or at least make me well up. Like Sinatra's "Cycles," the Bill Morrissey song "Birches." If you don't know that song, that's a master class in economical, beautiful songwriting. But the one I thought of when you asked me this was David Ackles' "I've Been Loved." Which is, the arrangement is kind of like over the top in a way that's almost like manipulative. I could see how it could just this side of manipulative, but I don't know, something about that song. I've been loved, so I know I'm alive. I mean, what a heavy thing to put into a song. It's also like legit, right? I mean, sure, that's right. I mean, how do you know you're alive? Well, I've been loved. I mean, what a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. This one, like his voice, there's something about it, and it's like this kind of, because there's something about the piano in this song that it like reminds me of like a Eric Satie piece or something.
Totally.
And it's kind of lilting and whimsical, and then his voice is this very like real. It's this really great like counterpoint to it, and then like that line you mentioned specifically is just like dagger.
Yeah, you're right. There's almost that's a really astute point about this, that there's this cognitive dissonance between the I think lilting is the right word, and his voice, which really cuts through. It's almost like almost Carnival Barker-esque, like it's really in that reedy tenor kind of. So I never thought about that, but next time I listen, I'll be thinking about that. That's a great point.
Well, on the other side of that, what's a song that will typically put you in a better mood?
The first one that came to mind was Cross the Heartland by Pat Metheny Group. That is a Toth family road trip staple. We often I'm usually in charge of the road mixes when we take long trips, and that's one I always kind of kick it off with because Leah and I, your previous guest, Leah Amelia Courthouse,
yes,
we both love that song, and we can sing every like little hi hat, on that song. It's something so. I guess I get a feeling from that song the way I guess some people would get from listening to Journey or even like Creed, where it's just this I feel like I'm on like a pound of cocaine, and I just have this euphoria.
Yes,
and it does that song, and I think Leah shares my affection for this song. That's such a great tune, and yeah, I love that whole record actually, American Garage, but that song, awesome.
Yes. Yeah, no, we lead very similar lives because I think this is on literally every road trip playlist or mixtape I've ever made. It is, but it's a song that's where it feels like anything is possible and the world is bright, and it's like you said, it's like a coke high. I mean, what
it is. But there's also jazz chops too, like the what the bass does on the song too, and. I mean, Lyle Mays is always, I'm such a Lyle Mays fanboy. And I always thought that the Pat Metheny group should have been called the Metheny Mays group because I feel like he contributed so much. I mean, we're getting really inside baseball nerd pedantic here, but wow. I met actually, he's so cool. And I mean, he's deeply uncool in a lot of ways, but he's so I met a colleague of Leah's when she got a job here and, we're in Wisconsin and, this colleague of hers, who actually became a very good friend of ours, his name is John Pennington. We were hanging around at some faculty get-together thing, and he just casually mentioned that he used to play basketball with Lyle Mays. And I almost dropped my drink. I was like, "What? What did you just say?" I freaked out. I was like, was he any good at basketball? And apparently he was. He was like a baller. He was really good on the court. So anyway, that's my Lyle Mays story.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, props to John Pennington for that one.
God, I wish I had. Maybe I need to play more pickup basketball. Maybe I'd randomly run into all sorts of cool people.
Yeah,
I don't know. Okay, well, everyone's favorite question: what is objectively the best song of all time?
I mean, I feel like it's a cop out to talk about someone like Dylan, or even talk about Cole Porter. Right. Because I mean, it's acknowledged that these are the masters. You just can't, we all live in their shadow. But for me, the best song of all time is Hammond's song by the Roches. I feel like it contains, the lyrics, the melody, you got Fripp on there. I mean, I also just love the Roches.
Those harmonies.
The harmonies are incredible. And the way that there's one part in the song where the harmonies, it's the don't be a fool part. It just their harmonies dovetail into Fripp's Frippertronic stuff, and it's just you can't really tell where the voices end and the note begins, and it's just a sublime moment. I just think that song. I can listen to that song every day for the rest of my life, and I never get tired. And I mean, this is their most celebrated tune, I guess. People have covered it, but I mean, the Roches in general, I feel are very overlooked. Anybody who likes Hammond's song, like the song "Losing True," just for one example, and Big Nothing, like a little later, it's definitely getting into the MIDI '80s stuff, but it's just upbeat but it's cynical. I don't know the power of the I've been looking for a Roches T-shirt for 20 years. If anybody out there knows where I can find a Roches tour T-shirt, and I don't mean a one that's what do they call drop shipped, made on demand. I mean a real one.
Right.
Yeah, that would make my day, make my year.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing. This is the first ever episode of this podcast. So with Jeff Tobias was the guest, and this was his pick for the greatest song of all time. So
cool.
I remember when we did it. Yeah, it was we've kind of started on a high here. It's because this is one of the greatest things ever.
Yeah, I feel like Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and for all those reasons that you said, I mean, it's like you, I could listen to this every day for the rest of my life, and never. I don't think it would ever lose its power.
No, that's a good word for it. It's perfect music. Hammond song is perfect.
Yeah.
So you said objective. I had to think.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Sad-Eyed Lady of the
Yeah.
Lowlands to me is an objectively perfect song. But would everyone feel that way? Probably not. But
I know. Yeah, I'm curious who the people are who hate Hammond songs. I mean, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, but it's like, God, I feel like even the most, I don't know, people who just listen to like Harsh Noise Wall.
Yeah,
it's like you would hear this, and it's so perfect, and that like I don't know, it's like undeniable.
I think that people who find music, if they're kind of averse to any kind of twee or slightly cloying. Like, I also don't understand why anybody wouldn't really like the Incredible String Band. But I imagine if I played that for my mom, they would put her in like a psych ward or something, So I get like what, I guess that,
yeah.
activity, but.
Okay. Well, what is a song that you used to love, but you heard it recently, or if you think about it now, it doesn't really do it for you anymore?
I really had a hard time with this because I just picked a kind of a random example and I said TV Party by Black Flag. Admittedly, not their greatest song. I want to preface by saying I have a Black Flag tattoo, and Black Flag were a really important band for me. I just think, though, that I'm using it more as a prompt because like hardcore in general, which was so important to me when I was a teenager, it was like the most important thing. I just can't seem to accommodate that music in my life anywhere anymore. I go back to it, a lot of that stuff, and it just doesn't. And it's weird because I don't feel this way about like most metal or Peter Brotzman, like that Assault. It's not really the assault of it. It's just, I mean, like if I put on the Cro-Mags now, it's purely for nostalgia reasons, which are valid reasons. But as far as like the musical value, like I don't really extract anything from it. And as an artist, like everything I listen to, I want to be able to extract something from it. And when I listen to old punk, I mean, some of it holds up really well. Like a lot of the screamo, like Moss Icon and the stuff that's getting reissued now, like that's, I mean, the kind of artsier West Coast, Midwest stuff. I really like that stuff. It's just, I don't learn anything from it. And when I listen to Gore Guts, or if I listen to like Ornette Coleman, I learn something. And I think that's my problem with it. So it's not really about Black Flag, who are, again, like they were so important to me growing up. I would never play even My War, Slip It In, which are my favorite. That's my favorite era. Like I'm not going to put that on. I just can't see doing it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that resonates a lot with me because I kind of have similar experience, similar feelings. Like, because like Black Flag was hugely important, like formative for me. And I realized like when I got your list that I was like, Black Flag has never come up on the show. This is like the 70th episode or so I've recorded. Yeah, and that really surprised me. And then I also realized I was like, I can't remember the last time I even listened to Black Flag.
You see, I can't say that because
I think it's for a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah, I have gone back and I've listened to a lot of the stuff from, like, I do that sometimes. I'm just like, how does this hold up? Another one for me is the Smiths, who are like, I mean, I had to get talked out of getting a Morrissey tattoo when I was in high school. My girlfriend's mother was like, "You're going to regret this," and she was right. But there's some things I go back to where I'm like, if I heard this today, I wouldn't last 30 seconds for various reasons. There's different reasons for all of it. But also that period though, that SST period. I will say that Black Flag is a band I still have a ton of respect for and I will always love in some way. But man, some of those like Descendants records are awful, like objectively. I just don't know. I mean, again, I listened to the Descendants when I was 12 or 13. That's something I can't see. No.
Right.
Sorry, Milo, if you're listening. You're a nice guy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, I was like 13. I was an idiot, so of course. But I totally get that. There's a lot of stuff from those times. I mean, West Coast, like Lookout Records was really formative for me, and like Operation Ivy, and I still can fuck with Operation Ivy. But my friend Sam and I did this whole podcast about about Rancid, because Rancid was super formative, but like we did like 80 episodes of this thing, or maybe 100, and it was like a song a week. It was, I don't know what we were thinking. But God, talk about like, it's trying to figure out what the hell, like extract, what is there anything I can extract out of this? And it, like, I think it made our friendship interest, like we became friends through it, which was cool. But like, man, I can't listen to that stuff. Like,
I'm with you
at all. Like, I don't know. And
I guess like,
it doesn't help that they're like pieces of shit, but whatever.
Well, I mean, the thing, I think Op Ivy is weird though, and that's why they hold up. I think that, again, I haven't listened to those records in a while, but I think I agree with you that I would probably play the Operation Ivy record now. But again, it's like trying to explain that stuff. Like if somebody overheard you listening to that, not that that matters, but I'll never forget. It's funny. Our very good mutual friend Keith Wood and I, he can confirm this story, but we were touring once with someone who didn't grow up into like the stuff we were into when we were growing up. And we were on tour, and I think we played like the Minutemen, and then we played like Jane's Addiction. And this person was like, "Oh my God, this slap bass! Like, how can you guys listen to this? This is like the worst. Like, slap bass is like the first original sin or whatever." And like Keith and I had a hard time being like, I can't explain it, but it's okay here. Like it's okay. Like, and it's like just trying to explain that to people is just a fool's errand, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, I mean, friends I have now who didn't grow up with like with punk rock or any of that stuff, and I'm thinking of playing like a buddy of mine. I played him Operation Ivy because he never heard it. I was like, "Oh my God, you never heard this?" And he was just looking at me like I was an alien. Like what? Like I'm like, no, like, and I agree. Like they are. I still don't. There aren't bands that. There was never anybody else who really sounded like they had their own weird.
Right. That's right.
It was weird, and but yeah, that's I co-sign all of this is what I'm saying, because it like really kind of resonates deeply. So,
Cool.
And I appreciate that you use the question as a jumping off point for this conversation, because that's great. Okay, well, what's the song people hate? I don't know who these people are. Somebody hates it. Maybe Leah hates it, but you don't care. You love it. Full stop.
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that our crew, our people, right? Like our friends, our general cohort, we hate lots of the most famous and successful songs of all time. Like it's difficult. Leah calls this art school glasses. It's like when you remember, that most people don't hate Third Eye Blind or Maroon 5. Like most people don't. Yeah. So it's like most people absolutely hate. Like I like Wagon Wheel. I like Dixieland Delight and Friends in Low Places and all those college bar sing along type jams. But the one that came to mind first was Cherry Orchards by Celtic Frost. This was during their glam era and considered at the time a major misstep. It was, I think it was like 1987 or 88. So I would have been like 9 years old. And all my older cousins who were all into metal and stuff, they were like, "Oh, it's a disaster with catastrophe. Terrible." Well, being 9 years old and having, I kind of liked Skid Row and all that stuff. So to me, it just sounded cool. It was like pretty good metal. And I played that record recently, Cold Lake. It's a pretty good record. It's not like classic, Tom G. Warrior, but it's, I admire the pivot. I admire the sort of the scruples and the audacity of it in a way, Yeah,
no, So I had never really heard this, which surprised me because we must be like the same age, because I was in 80. This came out in 88, so I'd have been like 9. And I had like I was pretty into glam metal, like Skid Row and like Motley Crue, like Dr. Feelgood, and
totally.
So this would have been totally my jam, and I kept thinking when I was listening to this, I was like, dang, if I had heard this then, I would have been obsessed with this.
Yeah, totally.
It kind of rules. Like I'm not like it kind of rules. Like I don't know much about like them as a band, to be honest. So this is probably my first real impression, which is kind of funny from what I've read.
It's pretty amazing that that's your first impression, because their classic material. I mean, they're kind of considered, along with like Bathory and some others, as like basically like black metal year one. You know, I mean, they are, they're a super important band in the metal community. They're like the sort of, like the Run DMC of that strain of metal or whatever, or maybe even the Cool Herc. I don't know. But I mean, but that was considered a total mess. But I think it's due for a sort of like a renaissance.
Yeah, that kind of like knowing that sort of backstory, that makes me kind of love it even more, because I can only imagine that people were just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, check out the first two. Check out Two Megatherion and Into the Pandemonium. Like, check out the first three Celtic Frost records. You'll see the cognitive dissonance, the disparity, and it'll blow you away.
Amazing, awesome. All right, do you think of yourself as a romantic?
I think I am. I mean, in the sort of lowercase r sense of being like an idealist, and being a sentimental person. Yeah, I think I'm a romantic person.
So what do you think is the most romantic song?
I have always really loved "You by My Side" by Chris Squire from his solo album "Fish Out of Water." Which you can find in most dollar bins, or at least you used to be able to find in most dollar bins. I also just think this is like a great wedding song. It wasn't ours, wasn't Leah and us. Ours was Bobby Charles. Must be in a good place now. But "You by My Side," I don't know. You know, some of the lyrics. When I'm alone, I still feel this way about you. You know, reaching with nothing to hide. It's an overwhelmingly beautiful song. And the only thing I think that keeps it from being perfect is that, to me anyway, my interpretation is there's a meta commentary throughout. In the second verse, he changes I still feel this way about you to we still. And then suddenly it becomes like, oh, this is like Yes's love letter to their fans. You know, like, we love you guys. Couldn't do this without it. And I think that's corny. I think it's corny. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but anybody out there who wants to tell me, like, the second verse, it changes it from I to we. And I picture Yes just writing this song, or the bass player from Yes in this case, writing this song to the fans. And that seems kind of insincere and corny to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna pretend I don't know. You didn't just say that, because it's kind of a bummer. Because this song, I love this song, and yeah, like the wedding. That's such a good call, because there's something about this song. It's like, it's kind of epic because of just the way, like, it's just big sounding, but it's like, but it's also like really intimate because of some of like the lyrics, and so like that combination is perfect for a wedding, right? Like that is
exactly yeah, exactly. I think you got it. Like the grandeur of it, but it's also like really romantic and heartfelt. Yeah, and it's not something people talk about much. Even on that record, which I think is under discussed, it's kind of sandwiched in the middle of side one between, like, you know, Hold Out Your Hand. It's like a prog epic, and this is a little like like more. I don't know. I don't want to say schmaltzy, but it's definitely like probably like there's not really probably a Yes fan in the world who's like, this is my favorite song, but. I love the whole record, but that song. No,
I did too, and I think I was gonna say, like, I do think it's like such an underappreciated record, because I'm pretty sure I got mine for $1 or like somewhere, and I remember thinking, and I still think to this day, like, because I don't know anybody that ever really talks about it, and I think it's so maybe it's due for a reassessment someday. Who knows? There's so much, but. Yeah, it's, oh God, I can't listen. It can't be about their fans. God damn it.
I'm sorry. I'm like demystifying. Like, and again, I could be totally wrong. Just as a songwriter, I don't know why else he would change this song, which is a relationship between two people, to like we, unless it's a David Crosby triad kind of situation. But that's even worse to contemplate. So
God, oh Jesus. Okay, let's move on to what's a song that changed your perspective on an artist for either better or worse.
Okay, I went with better because I'm such a positive person. I put Madonna in here, Live to Tell, which we discussed earlier. I think, like everybody with a pulse, I really love all the early Madonna stuff, the stuff that Jelly Bean produced, and I think retrospectively, I love it even more now than I did then. But when I was growing up, Madonna was my little sister's music, right? I mean, I was into Danzig and King Diamond, and this would have been right around Madonna's True Blue, maybe Like a Prayer era, which to me is still her least interesting period. But we were watching MTV, and I heard Live to Tell, accompanied by the video from At Close Range, which is an amazing movie, by the way. And I just stopped. I had to stop. But like, this is Madonna. I was probably only like 11 years old or something, but the vocal performance is something I've tried to get at for years in my own. Like this song to me, like I'm trying to steal from this song, and it'll never work. But the DX7s, just the way it sounds, the bridge, the Patrick Leonard's, just the writing, and Madonna also wrote. I believe she wrote the lyrics and the melody to this song, and I feel like she's kind of an underrated songwriter in a lot of ways. I'm not a poptimist guy at all. I don't do this sort of cultural relativism of like, this is just as good as this. Like, I don't really buy into that, but I feel like Madonna is someone worthy of a tremendous amount of respect, and one of the rare like pop icons I think that is worthy of that level of devotion. So anyway, Live to Tell. They named the last Dunza record after that. I may start a band someday called. I just also love referencing it, thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a really great title. So it's you should steal it. And now you say it's like, God, that would be such a good band name.
Totally.
Yeah, no, I've loved this song for a long time, and I go back to when I start thinking about figuring out why I am the way I am. But like a song like this, I think it was like an early like planted the seed, and is why I am obsessed with synthesizers, because I love like the DX7 on here. Like I love the sound of it, and the like. There's these like little arpeggios in there, and little like, and it just yeah. Oh God, it's just like, and it's the same. I'm like still like trying to create that still like 30 years later. And I didn't realize that she wrote this. That actually wrote this song. That's really awesome. That
I mean, the lyrics and I think the melody. I mean, Patrick Leonard wrote it, but I mean, I think that it was like a co-write kind of thing, And the other thing I want to say is like being a guy that was into Danzig, like the video for this, which is just clips from the movie, which was pretty typical of the time, you remember, but it was so evocative because I hadn't seen the movie. I'm not going to go see At Close Range, but there's a scene where like Sean Penn like holds a gun. He holds a gun right to Christopher Walken's temple. And it's just like, there's just a heaviness to it. And like accompanied with the song, I was just like, wow, this is different than, True Blue or La Isla Bonita. Like, I was like, this is serious art. I mean, I probably didn't say that. That would have been pompous. It's even now or at 11 years old. But I just had this feeling of it being like, wow, this is like deep,
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's, seeing that at like 11 on MTV or something. That's when you think about it, that's kind of wild. Like, okay. No, I love that. That's great. Okay. I imagine lyrics. I imagine you're a big lyrics person. I would guess.
I always have been. Yeah, like my my previous admission of my love for the Smiths was mostly about Morrissey back then. Because again, the thing that doesn't appeal to me about the Smiths now is the way the records sound. Johnny Marr is obviously an amazing guitar. The whole band's great, but like those records just sound terrible to me. But lyrics have always been important to me.
I can't imagine. I imagine this was a fun question. So what are your favorite lyrics?
Well, I think this might surprise people who know me, but the first one that came to my head, this is a first thought, best thought kind of approach to this, but like Feels Like Home by Randy Newman, which is a song. There's something kind of normie about the song, I think. But I think about this song a lot because no word in this song is longer than 2 syllables. It's like simplicity itself. I mean, Randy Newman's written some really erudite, really clever and interesting lyrics, but this speaks to something so specific that, on the surface, I think it's just a great love song. I mean, it gives you the feels, as the kids used to say. But if you do a close read, specifically, I think the tell in this song is when he sings, if you knew how lonely my life was and how long I've been so alone, or how long I've been alone. It's a love song about like misfits in love. Like this guy's been alone for an eternity. and he meets this person who we can assume has also been lonely and loveless. It's this beautiful meeting of kindred spirits, of outcasts, and he's comfortable, right? It feels like home. Another, like we were talking about earlier about David Ackles, like I've been loved, so I know I'm alive. Like when, love feels like home. That's another just beautiful sentiment. I mean, maybe it's trite now, but I don't know. There's something, this song to me is a masterclass in just the economy of what you can do and make a song universal, make a song that anybody can relate to, or at least anybody who's ever been in a relationship, but also it's also just well written and kind of sophisticated in its simplicity, if that makes sense. I think it's a really great song.
Yeah, no, I love this song, and I honestly didn't realize until I was prepping for this how many versions of this are out there. But
yeah, I think is it in Toy Story? I don't know.
I think it was like one of, yeah, that sounds right.
God, I don't know. I mean, I know he did music for a lot of those Pixar things, but I obviously don't have a lot of exposure to that. But for some reason, maybe that's part of the popularity of it, or maybe the algorithm. But yeah, I love the solo piano version on the Randy Newman songbook thing. I think None Such put that out. The solo piano version to me is just, that's the one.
Yeah, same. That's like my favorite one. And that's really interesting that there's no word over 2 syllables. Man.
Yeah, I double checked just for this. But yeah, it's true.
That's really incredible. But it is. I mean, it's one of those things. I feel like this is one of those songs that a lot of people would like look at or hear and be like, oh man, I could do this. It's like, no, he makes it seem so effortless, and know how hard. Like, I couldn't do this shit. Like, it would take me a lifetime to try to figure out how to capture this feeling with, like, in this very easy to grasp form, but that is also still somehow really kind of deep and emotive. It's just, whew.
Yeah, it's like how a lot of people will say, like, oh, I could write country songs, and you can't. Take it from someone who's done like co-writing sessions in Nashville and stuff. It is remarkably difficult to write those kinds of songs and to make them listenable, to make them good, to make them of high quality. Right. And Randy Newman's I think he's like a craftsperson. And I read this great book, Songwriters on Songwriting, years ago, and a lot of it stuck with me. Madonna's in it too. Speaking of Madonna, but most songwriters share this thing that I have, which is just that songs occur to you. You're somewhere, you're in the shower, you're trying to sleep, and you get a lyric and you have to write down. But Randy Newman's the opposite, which I always thought was interesting because he's in a very, very rarefied and small group of people where he treats it like, okay, I'm going to my job. I'm getting up at 9. I'm going to get dressed and I'm going to work on songs. And that's never worked for me. And I don't think that's a very common way to write. So maybe he thought, I would be surprised if Randy Newman wasn't aware that there was no word in the song longer than 2 syllables. He just seems like the kind of guy that would know that, intuitively or, unconsciously. But yeah, I just, I don't relate to that, but I think it produced at least one amazing song and feels like home.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's something that like I've tried to do that with music and art and stuff where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like I have my days very scheduled out, but it's a lot of it is just like, okay, I gotta, it's not I'm gonna go write a song or I'm gonna go make a piece of art. It's very often like 2:00 in the morning, wake up, and my brain's like, hey, this thing. It's like, cool, thanks.
Yeah, totally.
And I've tried doing it the other way because I have like a couple friends who like they go to their studio, like their art studio they go at 10 in the morning and they stay until 4 and they do it 5 days a week. And I've tried that and I just sit there and stare.
Yeah.
I can't force it.
Yeah.
I wish I could sometime.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's I always say the muse is a test,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it. Okay. Yeah. So what cover is better than the original? Let's.
My choice here is Flying on the Ground is Wrong by Rainy Day, sung by the goddess, the master, Kendra Smith. This whole record, Rainy Day, anybody out there who doesn't know it, it's top 3 records ever made. It's an incredible record. And Neil, I mean, it's Buffalo Springfield song, but Neil Young, I think, is very tough to cover because he's so singular, you know, and it's part of what makes a Neil Young song great is that Neil Young is singing it. You know, I mean, more so than Bob Dylan, because I mean, anybody can cover a great Bob Dylan song and there'll be something of value in it. But I think Neil is just more difficult to. I mean, I like Nicolette Larson's "Lot of Love" probably better than the original too, but that's another sort of outlier. But I feel like Kendra was born to sing this song. And we were talking earlier about Crystal Gale. Here, the voice to me make those lyrics resonate so much stronger. Like I've known this song since before I could talk. Like I come from a pretty big like Neil. My uncle was super into Neil Young, and we had the Decade comp. But I never appreciated the lyrics until this cover. There's something about the line, "I wish I could have met you in a place we both belong," that really struck me. I think that's a really heavy lyric. And this whole record, though, I mean, Kendra Smith is like, basically peerless. You just cannot fuck with Kendra Smith. And David Roback, too. And Susanna Hoffs on there. I mean, the whole record's great. But that song, I think, is better. And I say this as a man with a Neil Young tattoo, but "Flying on the Ground is Wrong" by Rainy Day, better than the original.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. Like, where is Kendra Smith now? Like, what is she doing?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get, I don't want to get too inside baseball, but there was a real flap over those Opal reissues recently when David Roback died. So yeah, maybe it's best not to discuss it, but it's a shame because those records are great and people should hear them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that is too bad. This whole record is, I don't know. I can't remember when I first heard it, but I just remember it's like one of those records that sort of just stops you in your tracks of like, oh my God.
Totally.
Okay, so let's see. So what's the song that means the most to you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, like I said, our wedding song, Leah and I, your previous guest, Leah and I, is "I Must Be in a Good Place Now" by Bobby Charles. Similar to "Feels Like Home" and some other songs we've mentioned. You see what a sentimental person. Half these songs are like tearjerkers, but I just think this is a beautiful song from a beautiful record. The very first mix I ever made for Leah, first of many, probably hundreds or thousands by now. But I was living in Tennessee, and the first mix I made was called Tennessee Blues. It was after a song on this record, which I, introduced her to the song, and this is the song I put on the mix. So, and she just really took to it. Like, I'll play Leah things, and maybe 30% of them will really resonate. And I'm always wrong. Like, I'm always like, "Oh, you'll love this because you like X, Y, and Z." And she'll be like, "It's all right," but it does, But this one just resonated immediately. So it means a lot to us. And there's this tunnel vision version of love on this song. You know what I mean? Like love is all around, and all I see is you. I mean, that's great. I mean, we live in a world with like blue skies and trees and pizza. And, if all I see is you, I mean, that's high praise,
That's a hell of a, I mean, that's not messing around. No, this is another one. I feel like this is something I keep saying with a lot of these songs, like his voice, man. It's like, it's somehow it's like grainy and silky at the same time. I don't know. It's
totally.
Oh my God.
That's a good way to describe it.
And you add that to some of those lines in the song, and it just, it's like you're in the palm of his hand, and it's that feeling of, God, if someone feels like this, if you feel like this about somebody, or somebody feels this way about you, dang.
Yeah. Put a ring
something
on it.
Must be okay. Like there must be something okay in the world. Like
totally.
And things are definitely not okay in the world right now, but
no, it was ever thus.
Yeah. Great song.
But I mean, like, I think this is one of the themes of all this is that, like, when a great song collides with a good performance or a great performance, I feel like that's one of those things. You can have a great song and a lousy performance, and that's okay. And you can have a great performance of a lousy song, and that sometimes works. But it's those songs where they both come together, and it's just wow, just like the songs that make you want to quit writing, quit performing.
Yeah,
that's a good feeling.
Right.
It's a good feeling.
Exactly. It is. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, what is your favorite song? At least in this moment in time, what is your favorite song?
The moment in time doesn't matter. My favorite songs have been my favorite songs for a really long time. There are two songs I want played at my funeral, but one of them is more known as an instrumental song. One of them is the Thelonious Monk trio version of Darn That Dream. It's on the unique Thelonious Monk. That's that tune. But because there are lyrics to that song, but they're not really, no one really knows them. I mean, it's a pretty good song with the lyrics, but because that's cheating, because it's an instrumental, and I'm, a quote unquote songwriter. I wanted to mention my favorite song is Tony Rice, his version of The Last Thing on My Mind, which is also a good example of a cover that's better than the original.
Oh, yeah.
But this is, it was written by Tom Paxton, covered a zillion times. I think I like every version I've heard of it. The Chet Atkins version from the Herzog film Straussic is also, it's like a close second. That's, if anybody's hasn't, William Tyler, I think, played that for me for the first time. That's a really incredible. Oh, wow. Definitely check out the Chet Atkins version. It sounds nothing like the Chet Atkins that you might know. But anyway, this is a perfect song, and in my opinion, and Tony's interpretation to me, I don't know. I mean, he's not known as a singer. He's considered, and rightfully so, like one of the greatest guitar players of all time. I mean, he is the flat picker, but like Bert Jansch too. Like, I think his songwriting, his vocals get overlooked because he's known for this one thing. His vocal on this, I feel like nobody could have. Phil Everly couldn't have sung this better. Gene Clark, also covered. I'm trying to think of the people, like the great songwriters who've covered this. To me, Tony Rice sings it best. And again, for somebody who's not a singer, I think he's just so believable on this.
It's imagine, a really good word. Yes.
Yeah, he's believable. Like, imagine Sheryl Crow singing this, it doesn't work. I mean, maybe it's not, maybe it'll be fine, but every nuance of that, like the way, again, you were talking about how I'm like a lyricist, like probably first and foremost. If anybody knows who I am, they probably think of me as lyricist, but I feel like I'm a singer before I'm a lyricist, because I pay attention to singers more than I do lyricists. And the way his voice gets just a little raw on like the second line of the chorus, with "Let there be not a place left behind." There's a word "let be." I don't know. He just. And he died recently, and like, I'm not the kind of person, I don't have that parasocial relationship with celebrities. Right. Like when someone died, like I mean, it sucks and it's sad, but if I don't know them personally, I'm not usually affected. But I was, a few years ago, I was really getting deep into Tony Rice. I read his book, which is very good, by the way. His biography, not autobiography. I don't know, that one affected me somehow. Just, I don't know. He just seems, there's something. I have this weird, I just said it's not parasocial, but I was just about to say I feel like he's paternal. There's a great clip. You want to talk about like wanting to cry. There's a clip from some awards show. It's on YouTube. And Alison Krauss is winning this award, and Tony Rice and Alison Krauss were really great friends. And this was right after Tony Rice had basically gone into retirement. He had like a throat, I don't know if it was throat cancer, but he had a terrible throat thing. And everyone's like, Tony Rice is gone. Mm-hmm. And he came up to the podium to give Alison Krauss this reward. And he says, like, "Alison, I'm speaking in my real voice." And I guess he hadn't spoken in like a year or so. He was like doing all this therapy, but he like mustered, he like worked on it to deliver this award to Alison Krauss. And oh my God, like I'm tearing up thinking about it right now, actually. Like, there's a standing ovation. I don't care. You have to have like ice water in your veins to not be affected by that. So, and of course I thought about just bring it back full circle. I just thought about this song, like, it's the past tense. It's like, I didn't mean to be unkind. That's why it's a great funeral song, because it's like the last thing in my mind, there's a finality to it, but also just, it's about like, hey, if I fucked up, I'm sorry. I don't know, man. This song, I think everybody should listen to it.
I agree. Like, no, it's a great. I don't really have much to add, but
sorry, I went long on that one.
And I'm going to look. Yeah, no, God, hey, if you're going to go long on one, you should probably go long on your favorite song. But I'm going to have to look that video up, because that sounds. Yeah, I mean,
if you can't find it, let me know. I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man. Well, awesome. Well, hey, that's perfect place to end.
Totally.
Anything you want to plug?
I want to plug this podcast, The Songs of Our Lives, and I want to plug Brad Rose and everything he does. And I think people should join the Patreon because Brad's been doing great, consistent work for a very long time. And he's a big supporter of the underground and beyond when we need it the most. So thank you, Brad, for having me.
Well, shit. I'm blushing. Okay. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. I'm not good at compliments. Okay. All right. Once again, thank you to James Toth. Oh, man. What a good time. Go listen to some Dunza stuff. I'm telling you, it is... Every time he puts out something new, it clicks. The latest one's really good. And if you haven't heard the James of the Giants record from a couple years ago, check that out too. Link to all his picks in the show notes, of course. That's it. Once again, leave a rating or review. Patreon.com/Foxy Digitalis. There's been lots of killer stuff on the Foxy D site this year so far too. It's really cranking along. So go check it out too. I don't know. All that, more, whatever. Till next time, keep on listening to whatever the hell you want.